welcome back to the pod. So excited to have y'all here. If you're brand new, welcome to the pod. This is the Still Called Pod, where honestly we talk about faith, we talk about struggles, we're talking about the difficulties that come in following the Lord, but how the Lord still calls us back to Him, back to Himself, back to His home, back to His grace, back to His love. And that's really the overall theme of the pod. That's what the pod is built on, and what I would love for us to take away every single episode is that we're still called, no matter what it is that we're going through, or no matter what it is that we're facing. So today I want to talk about uncertainty in following God through tough times, or maybe there's just difficulty having faith in a specific thing or area in your life, and it's just really difficult for you to trust God. It's really difficult for you to see how things are going to pan out and work out. And just really struggling to to have faith. And I think all of us have been there, or are there, and will be there at different points in life. But I feel like that is going to be something that happens continually, because that's something that forces us to grow, forces us to see God in a different way. I think there's only really two options when we are in situations like that and we feel like God's not there. We feel like He is not hearing us, He's not seeing us. Option one is that we just completely abandon our faith and we're like, yeah, screw this. God's not here. He's not hearing me. He doesn't see me. And we just abandon our faith, which I have a lot of sympathy for, to be honest, because it's very hard. It's very painful to feel like God is not there, to feel like He is there at one point in your life, and He's very present, and you feel Him, you spend time with Him, and you love spending that time. You're engaged, all the things, and everything is going great. And then in another season, it feels like He's not there. It feels like the things that you did before aren't working anymore, and that you're not able to feel Him, you're not able to experience Him. And I have sympathy for that, because that's very real. And that's difficult. It's difficult. But I do think the other option is that when we are in that time, we choose to take our emotions, our struggles, our doubts, our thoughts to God rather than away from God. We choose to go through that time of disappointment with God and not apart from God. Choosing to seek Him even though we're unsure, rather than seeking vices continually and going to those things for comfort rather than God for comfort, or even to people for counsel. We just choose to isolate rather than going to people. So I think those are the two options that we have when we are facing uncertainty, when we're facing doubt, we're facing challenges. And really, I'm just going to group that all in uncertainty. Whether you're uncertain about what's going to happen next in your life, whether you feel that God is distant and you're uncertain on if He's actually there with you, whether you just have faith questions, or you're having relationship issues, or any kind of issue that gets you to question your faith. I will categorize all of that under uncertainty, and whether the Lord is with you in that struggle. Um, I'm just trying to see where I wanna start this, where I wanna go with this. Um, yeah, there's a verse in John 1 verse 48. And this is when Jesus calls Philip and Nathaniel. Those are two of the disciples. two disciples of Jesus at that time when he first arrived on scene. And it says in verse 48, Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" And Jesus answered him, "Before Philip called you," because Philip went to go and call Nathanael, because Philip was the one who encountered Jesus first. Um, Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. So Philip is Nathanael was like, "How do you know me?" Jesus answers him, "I saw you under the fig tree." And they hadn't seen each other before that. They hadn't interacted with each other before that. However, Jesus saw Nathanael under the fig tree before Nathanael even encountered Jesus. The reason why I mentioned that is because a lot of the time when we're feeling uncertain, the first thing that we think is that God is not here and that God does not see us. God does not hear us and he doesn't care about us. But before Nathanael even met Jesus, Jesus saw Nathanael. I also think about Hagar when she was running away from Sarai and Abram, and God met her on her journey and introduced himself. Well, actually, she called him El Roy, the God who sees, seeing her in her affliction. Even though she was uncertain, even though she was hurt and she was going through disappointments, the Lord still saw her and she was able to see the Lord in that way too. I think that's the first thing to go, really, is that God doesn't see us, God doesn't hear us. John 10:10 talks about how the devil comes to steal, to kill, and destroy, but God comes to give life and give it in abundance. I think that one of the key goals is for the devil to steal your faith, to kill your faith, and to destroy your faith. And he's going to do that in a variety of ways with a variety of methods. But I think it really just comes down to him trying to distract you from your faith, whether you are facing uncertainty in your relationships, facing uncertainty in whether you think the Lord is there, financial struggles, just struggles with anything that would put pressure on you, that would emotionally weigh on you or spiritually weigh on you, that has the potential to turn you away from God. It has the potential for you to look at something else rather than you to look at God. And I think that's the enemy's goal, is to shipwreck your faith through the circumstances that we go through. But this truth right here reminds us that even when we are going through troubles like Sarai, not Sarai, like Hagar, we're going through troubles like Hagar, or we haven't even encountered the Lord yet. He sees us and he knows us, and he's there with us and present with us. One of the things I think is very important when we are in seasons of uncertainty is that where we once felt God's hand over us, we must now rely on his character. We must now rely on who he is and who scripture says that he is. And I was actually having a conversation about that with somebody the other day who's going through something, going through a tough time, and being like, he doesn't feel the hand of God over his life right now in a certain thing. However, he's choosing to remember God's goodness and God's faithfulness over his life through his heart. So instead of feeling his hand over his life, he's remembering the heart of God, which God is loving, God is kind, God is patient. He's compassionate, he's slow to anger. He is steadfast in choosing to walk with us. So again, like how the devil will try to steal your faith through these circumstances, everything can be going wrong, but simultaneously we can choose to look at the Lord's character to say, okay, God is still good, God is still kind, even though I'm going through this, which can be hard to do because, again, we're going through a tough time. I think we are less open to being optimistic when we're going through tough times. I think it's actually easier to be pessimistic and to continue to dwell on the worst and think on the worst. But God actually calls us to think on things that are higher, think on things that are above our earthly situations. And when we think about God's character, even in the midst of our challenges, it can kind of give us a glimpse of hope and help us to endure past the uncertainty and the trial that we are facing, because we know that this is not our final destination. We also know that this is not our final stop and that God is still leading us to more, leading us on to experience more of Him, but also more, just more, just more than this situation. So, yeah, that's what I think. I think that the enemy will try to shipwreck our faith in a variety of ways. He'll use all our struggles, he'll use our challenges, he'll use just a bunch of things that are emotionally weighty or spiritually weighty, get us questioning ourselves, get us questioning other people, get us questioning the Lord. And he'll try to use that to draw us away from the Lord. But that same thing can also be used by God, for our good, for our benefit. Should we choose to rather turn to God with our emotions and our frustrations and struggles and uncertainty and doubt, rather than turn to fear and overthinking and vices, where the enemy can only continue to snowball all of those emotions, and snowball all of what it is that we're going through, making it bigger than it initially was. Um, yeah, being uncertain, it's hard because it really it really requires you to depend on God a lot more. But we're a lot of the time in a place where it's like I need to depend on you more and I know that, but it's already hard to depend on you because of everything that's going on. It's already like extremely difficult. And for me, I've been in a place of uncertainty for 7 months, of not knowing necessarily what's next, not knowing what job the Lord wants me in, not knowing what exactly things are going to look like. And within those 7 months, there have been other things too that have just popped up, that have made me question, made me doubt, made me fearful. And at many points, I was like, God, you still want me to trust you after I've tried to trust you and like nothing has changed. Literally nothing has gotten better. Nothing has nothing has turned around for my good the way I thought it would turn around for my good. And in that situation, I was constantly, for a while, I was like, God, change my situation, change my situation, change my situation. Why aren't you changing my situation? I'm feeling uncertain, I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling doubtful, I'm feeling all these things. Why aren't you changing my situation and turning this around for my good, like that verse that we were reading, that you work all things together for my good? I don't feel your hand over my situation, which goes back to 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 remembering his heart when you don't feel his hand. Because as I began to do that, I began to realize that God may not be changing my situation, but God is changing me through my situation. His hand may not have shown in the way that I wanted it to show, in my situation changing, in my circumstance changing, in things becoming more certain for me. But his heart definitely changed my heart. His heart definitely changed the way that I saw the situation, the way that I saw him. and the way that I saw my faith develop from God do this thing for me to God change me and make me more like you in this. Help me to endure through this. Help me to still trust you where I feel like I can't trust you, where I feel like everything around me is crashing and burning, but I'll still choose to look at you. Um, Another thing that was brought up in that conversation was Peter walking on the water as Jesus was approaching him, and he's looking right at Jesus, and he's walking on the water. But as soon as the wind and the waves start crashing all around, he pays attention to that and starts to sink. In our uncertainty, I think that is that's applicable. That symbolism or that story is very true in our lives too. Is that when everything is calm, it's easy to look at Jesus. It's easy for us to be certain that he's there because we're looking right at him. Like we can feel him. Everything is calm. Nothing else is trying to grab our attention. Things are chill. And then the waves start to crash and uncertainty comes in and fear comes in and doubt and worry and stress, anxiety comes in. All these problems with people come in. And we start to look at all these things and we begin to sink because we're no longer looking at Jesus. And when we're not looking at Jesus, we don't really have the opportunity for him, for his heart to impact our heart because we're just trying to survive. We're just trying to not drown. We're trying to not die. And Jesus is literally like, yo, I'm still here. And he reached out his hand and he pulled Peter back up. He's like, yo, I am still here with you. Like, literally just look at me. Look at me. I'm still here because I see you. Again, he's the God who sees. He's like, I see you. I know that it feels like I'm not here. I know that it feels like you can't you can't see me working in your life, but like I still am. Which is another thing that I think is extremely important when we're facing moments of uncertainty, is that our feelings tend to be amplified, and mostly amplified toward pessimism. And it's very easy to trust our feelings over trusting the Lord. One, because we already see that God is not there in the way that we'd like for him to show up. We already feel like he's not present. We already feel like we have been abandoned. And so it's easier to believe those thoughts and those feelings over time. It's one thing for that thought to pop up and you rebuke it and it's like, cool, it never comes back again. But over an amount of time, you start to believe that thought and that lie. You start to see it as truth. You start to really think that God has left you and has abandoned you. And again, it goes back to the Lord wanting to process our emotions with Him, rather than apart from Him. And one thing that I've had to learn too is that even though I'm not getting a direct answer immediately, that doesn't mean that every moment that I go to God in faith, bringing my question or bringing my doubt, it doesn't mean that He doesn't see that. It doesn't mean that He doesn't hear that. Again, it goes back to Him not changing my situation, but He's changing my heart. And so I keep coming back because now I am believing that although God is not changing my situation, I believe that He's still a faithful God. I believe that He's still a God who sees me, who hears me, who knows me, who loves me. Going back to the truth of His character and His heart, to be more convinced of the fact that He is here even when it feels like He's not here. And that's Him teaching me to rely on faith and walk by faith and not sight, rather than to see His hand move and me be like, oh, that's God. And God only is here when I see Him perform a miracle or I see Him perform something. I see His hand do something. Yeah. Honestly, I think that's part of why we go through it too. for us to deepen our understanding of God, to deepen our understanding of the fact that God is not just someone who shows up when we need him to do something for us, when we need a miracle to happen. God is not, he's not a genie. God is a consistent, faithful person that we walk through life with. And he's not someone who is only present when things are good. He's someone who's also present when they are bad. And in our understanding, because again, a while ago, I said when we have only experienced God in a certain way and we no longer experience him in that way, it's kind of like, oh, he's not here no more. But what if God is still present in both ways? You are just not experiencing the way that you did before. And he's trying to show you that he's still present here in this way. And unfortunately, but also fortunately, this would require a deeper trust, which means a deeper surrender, which ultimately means a bit more pain as you are choosing to rely on him and not what you see, choosing to still trust him, even though everything around you is seemingly in chaos. In uncertainty, I think that's the opportunity where we really, really get to see God's heart and where our faith really deepens and our relationship with him gets gets deeper, gets more authentic, gets less superficial, and becomes less about what God can do for me. And God only loves me if he does this. And if he shows up in this way, that means God is here. To God is faithful, full stop. God is loving, full stop. God is kind, full stop. He's gracious, full stop. God is patient, full stop. Without anything attached to it. I think we can only experience that when we go through tough times and uncertainty and choose to lean into who he is. That we can only see that when everything that we once knew about God is not there, but God is still here, just in a different way. And we can see that God is God all on his own without being attached to anything else. And that his character is his character, regardless of anything. And that even when our situation doesn't change, we can still be changed by trusting his character. And that deepens our relationship with him and deepens our understanding of him even. So I'll go ahead and end it here. But for anyone going through a time of uncertainty and a time of struggle, a time of pain, a time of feeling like God is distant, I hope that this was helpful to know that God is still present and he still sees you. But I also like to encourage you to keep going, to keep showing up day by day. And really, that's all it takes, to show up day by day. You may have a good day, you may have a bad day, as long as you show up on that day. Choosing to trust God every single day rather than choosing to trust what your circumstances say about God or even about you, what your fear or doubt says, and choosing to believe him and his character and his word over everything else, allowing him to change you, even though the situation around you isn't changing yet. I would just like to encourage you to keep going, to keep having faith to keep trusting in the midst of your uncertainty. And I know that God would meet you there at your point of need as you continue to do that. So I'll just pray, and then we can get out of here. We'll end the episode. I'm just looking to the side. This is 26 minutes. That felt pretty short, actually, as I was speaking. But yeah, I hope it was helpful. I hope it blessed someone. But yeah, I'll pray, and then we'll get out of here. Lord, I thank you for our lives. I thank you for your heart. I thank you that even when we don't see you or feel you in the way that we would like, I thank you that you're still present, that you're not a God who abandons us once things get tough. You're actually a God who gets closer to us in the midst of our uncertainty, that you are close to those who are brokenhearted, and that you save those who are broken and hurting and wounded in spirit. So Jesus, I just pray over every individual watching this who is having trouble in their lives and struggling to see you and trust you and believe in you because things are just so painful right now. I pray that you would give them the faith to continue to see you and walk toward you day by day, leaning into you rather than away from you, choosing to come to you and presenting all of it that is bringing them pain, bringing them hurt. And I pray that you would meet them in that processing. You would meet them in that vulnerability and that surrender. And that maybe you won't change their situation immediately, but I pray that you certainly would change their heart as they get to know your heart more, as we get to know your heart more and more. That you help us to become more like you, and that as we endure and get through this trial, we would know you deeper and trust in you more, and that our understanding of you wouldn't be surface level. Our understanding of you would be based on what you say about you, which is that you are faithful, that you love us, that you see us, that you are compassionate, that you will always walk with us and not forsake us. I pray that those truths would become extremely true to us. In Jesus' name, amen. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Again, I hope it blessed you. I hope it helped. And I will catch y'all in the next episode. Peace. It's been a while, yeah, tears fell, but I'm still here. It's all well, struggle, still going, still real, but